Awesome. All righty. So everyone, welcome in here to this ArcGIS training. My name is Ronnie. I serve as the outreach coordinator here for AACD. Thank you guys for joining us here for our session 8. We're excited to continue building tools and skills that directly support your mapping work and your conservation efforts. These trainings are shaped by you guys. Your questions, comments, and feedback forms are the ones that truly drive what we cover. They help us keep each session relevant, practical, and useful in the field. We sincerely appreciate all your guys' engagement and continued input. Before we dive in, these are a quick housekeeping notes for you guys. Today's session is being recorded. The recording and accompanying reference sheet will be available on the AACD website. If you've missed any of the previous sessions, those recordings and the reference materials are also posted there. And I'll go ahead and I'll share that link in the chat here shortly. Cameras are welcome on or off, whatever you guys feel most comfortable with. And to help reduce background noise, though, please keep your microphones muted unless you're speaking. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move here at a steady pace so we can cover today's material within the hour, but please speak up if you guys need us to slow down or clarify anything. Questions are encouraged, so feel free to drop them in the chat to the side, or at the top you can raise your hand and we'll address them along the way as we go. And then we'll also have time set aside at the end for Q&A as well. After the session, you'll receive a brief feedback survey. Taking a few minutes to complete it, we'd really appreciate that. It really helps us fine-tune the future trainings and focus on what's most valuable to you guys. So for today's session, we are going to be walking through an ArcGIS mobile app overview. And introduction. Did work. If you guys can go ahead and mute your microphones, that would be great for us. Thank you. An introduction to today into the field workflows in ArcGIS, an overview and demo of ArcGIS Quick Capture, Field Maps, and Survey 123. We'll also be kind of going over getting started with ArcGIS, and then again, if time allows, open discussion Q&A. We are excited today. We have Joe and Eli from Esri who will be kind of presenting this information. They are the experts on everything, you guys. Please soak up as much as you can. They have so much to offer us. So let's go ahead and pick their brains, and we'll go ahead and hand it over to them. And I'm hoping, we shall see, I might be putting them on the spot here, that we are trying to get them for a second training as well. So. But anyways, without further ado, Joe and Eli, I will go ahead and turn the screen over to you, and you are more than welcome to go ahead and take it over.
All right. Can you see my screen?
I can. Yes. I'm sure then that everyone else can. Perfect.
All right. Thanks. Yeah. So maybe I'll just do a couple of quick introductions. My name is Joe Peters. I'm a solution engineer team lead for Esri. Eli and I actually both support state and local government. We work out of the Denver regional office, which is technically located in Louisville, Colorado, outside of Boulder. I've been with Esri about 10 years, working in the 5 states that we support out of our office, which are Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, Wyoming. It's been great getting to know the GIS community in that area, going up to user conferences and those kinds of things. So happy to be on the call today. And Eli, you want to do a quick introduction as well?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Hey, everyone. My name is Eli Zay, also a solution engineer out of our Denver regional office. Supporting local governments as well. I do focus on the state of Arizona and New Mexico in particular. Got to go out to AGIC this past August, and hope to see some of you all there and across other events, anything GIS related in the state. And yeah, Joe and I are here today to share some of our mobile apps, give you all a brief introductory level overview, and answer some questions at the end of the day. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Eli. Yeah, and there's, we're trying to cover a lot. Hopefully this is a good overview, and we could do a follow-up session, as Ronnie mentioned, and also if people do want to connect with us offline, we're always happy to get a little bit more into things on a one-on-one basis. So as far as an agenda today, this is what we're trying to cover, and I know that Ronnie, this is kind of duplicating what Ronnie had, but we'll just do some a brief overview of ArcGIS. I just want to kind of level set, like, what our system is, who our company is. Three of our mobile apps that I think are really interesting, have a lot of new development happening as we speak. Probably very useful to a lot of the workflows that the folks on the line might be interested in, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. And just to level set, our company, we're been around for many years, since 1969. We're kind of the leaders in GIS technology. So there's a lot of mapping consumer apps out there, but I think if we're trying to maintain our own data and create an authoritative data set for our organizations, do analysis on it, share it with other stakeholders, people in other organizations. Esri is really good at doing that stuff, and hopefully we'll give you an idea of how to get started with some of those things today. We have a lot of users. I just put this slide in here just to say I think one of the great things about working for Esri, and hopefully for the folks that use our technology, is there's a lot of folks willing to help. There's a lot of chats and forums and community posts where if you're trying to do something, you're probably not the first person to try to do it, or if you are, then you're the person helping lead the way. And if you communicate that back to the community, it's really powerful. So, and what we make is a technology called ArcGIS, and we really think of this as a system nowadays. You know, as ArcMap, I saw Ronnie had on that slide that ArcMap is kind of moving on. I think it's officially retiring in March of this year. That's a big step for us. That's been a real workhorse in our system, as people are probably aware, for 20 years. But as we move into ArcGIS Pro and our online system and our enterprise system for larger organizations has grown, it's really exciting the way that it's all kind of coming together right now, where people can be working in our desktop software, ArcGIS Pro. There might be people out in the field that are editing in a mobile app. There might be people using a web app online, and all of that data is connected. It's the same data set that we're just kind of persisting in different places. And I think that's one of the things that makes the system today fairly powerful. I think many of the folks on the line might just be familiar. A lot of times when I tell people I work for Esri, and it's maybe like in a conversation outside of work, people that know our company, what they tend to know is the apps, right? They might say, oh, you know, I interned for a summer and I had to do bird observations, and I used Survey 123 for that, or I used Quick Capture, or I built a story map when I was in college or something like that, or I did that for my organization. So I think a lot of times we kind of like think of the apps that we're connecting to the data with when we think of Esri. And I think one way to kind of like help kind of cut through like the fact that we do have a lot of apps, and they're all kind of purpose built for certain patterns of use. Obviously, today we're here to talk about field mobility, and we'll talk about that. But I think it's important to note that all of the applications that Esri builds, many of these live in ArcGIS Online, which is where we're going to be kind of demoing out of today, which is our SaaS offering. So it's a system where we can log into ArcGIS Online. We can create maps by pulling in data or creating data sets that just live in ArcGIS Online. And then we can create other applications that allow us to pull it into mobile apps, pull it into story maps or dashboards, these other places. So it's a really nice thing when we create like a little miniature system around a workflow that we're trying to accomplish by leveraging the totality of the applications that might be purpose-built for different reasons. So, you know, a very common workflow for us to have somebody out in the field with our ArcGIS Field Maps application or Survey 123 that's collecting data. We might have an internal dashboard that allows stakeholders internal to the organization to see what's going on out in the field as data is getting updated or inspections are happening. And then if we're doing a really good job of that, we might go so far as actually sharing that with people external to our organization through something like an ArcGIS hub site or a story map or those kinds of things. So just want to kind of level set with these patterns of use that we kind of think about, or capabilities, I guess you would say, within our organization. Getting into field operations, I think one of the neat things I think about the mobile apps that we provide is that they're used across almost every industry that we support with our technology. So you see it in use in AEC, Eli and I work with state and local government. We see tons of use cases across, departments in a local government organization or agencies at the state, or in your case, in the conservation space. There's lots of really neat things that we can do. So we build the mobile app technology. We also have a team that we're going to talk a little bit towards the end about. We have a team within Esri called our ArcGIS Solutions team that actually takes our mobile apps and builds workflows around them. And so I'll show you how there's some specific conservation applications that you can just like press a button and essentially get going with workflows that might be related to the kinds of things that you guys are doing. So, and the field, as far as our field operations go, I think there's a handful of things that I think are really important that you can do with our mobile apps. One is just being able to see things. Going back 10 years, I think there were a lot of folks that would be going out into a field location and they would be printing maps out. That those maps might stick around for several years. The data might get stale. Easy to lose track of things. People in the field might have at that point with like paper-based workflows been kind of circling things. They want the GIS people back in the office to update. And I think that just the other big aspect of our mobile apps is being able to, for the right people to be able to edit and update information, whether that's actually moving points and lines and polygons around on the map or just editing attributes associated with those features. I think that's a really powerful aspect of our mobile applications is kind of closing the loop, letting the people who are essentially the authority on the data who are out in the field being able to be the maintainers of that data and not having to rely so much on a GIS team or staff to do that. So, and the three mobile apps that we're going to talk about today are Quick Capture. I'll talk about Quick Capture and then I'm going to pass it over to Eli to talk about Survey 123 and field maps. We have some other mobile apps as well, but I kind of think that these are the three probably, I don't know, most important or flagship applications that we want to make sure that you're aware of and have some familiarity with, like how you could get started and the kinds of things that you can do with them. So I'll first start by talking about Quick Capture, and then I'll pass it over to Eli, as I mentioned. Quick Capture, kind of a newer one. I would say it's a little bit more lesser known than Survey 123 and field maps. But if you have a workflow that this is relevant to, it can be really powerful. And that's why we wanted to talk about it today. We call it the big button mobile app. So it literally is just big buttons in the application where somebody can very quickly just push a button and either put a point on the map or start drawing a line on a map. So you figure if you're somebody who's maybe in a vehicle and wants to track a certain length of roadway, or maybe they're on a four-wheeler and they're actually on a trail or they're biking a trail. We've got some examples of folks doing that where they're trying to get their trail information into GIS and they just start streaming by pushing a button and they just ride the trail on their bike. And then when they're at the end of the trail, they hit the button again and it turns off that stream. And you've essentially collected that trail in GIS by just using these really big buttons. So it's intended to be very simple. It's definitely our simplest of applications, but it's really powerful too. And it does allow you to connect. All of our mobile applications that we'll show today have the ability to connect to high accuracy GNSS or like GPS devices. The way that you do that is like if you have an Android or iOS device that our mobile apps get installed on, you can connect the high accuracy GNSS device to that mobile device. And then within our mobile apps, you have the ability to kind of override the default location settings of the device and use that high accuracy device. So if you need high accuracy, you can do it in these apps. And it's kind of cool because it allows you to like maybe have a surveyor or someone with our mobile device go out and get really accurate information if that's a necessity. A lot of times it's not. A lot of times we're just trying to put a point on the map and that relative location is good enough for GIS work, and that's fine too, but I did want to point that out. So this is just a little video showing what it could be look like to go out and do like a road debris survey of just driving down the road and like clicking on these buttons and getting your result. So I just wanted to show that real quick. And I think I'm going to just get into a demo of this to show you what it looks like. So bear with me as I switch screens. Uh, uh, all right. So, um, just want to start out. I'm logged into ArcGIS Online. So this is our SaaS offering, so software as a service, where essentially we just log in. We need to have a username with the right credentials, but we can log in here, and I'm in my content where um, I can create all sorts of things. I can create maps and data layers, and I have a rich set of applications that I can create. But I'm going to just very quickly show you. Eli's going to go a little more in depth into this, but I just wanted to point out there's a few places or ways that we can actually create the data that we want to use to collect information. So like the actual layer that the data collection will go into. We can do this in our desktop software as well, but it's really nice that we can actually do this just right within ArcGIS Online. So if I say new item and I say feature layer, a feature layer is just a data storage mechanism for us. In our system, you can actually select from some existing ones or use an existing template, but you can create your own. And in our system, you can create points, you can create lines, you can create polygons, you can even just create tables. So like tables essentially are we're storing the data, but there's no point line or polygon associated with it. But I just want to point out that you can go in here, you can click through this little interface to create a data layer that you can use to collect information. And I'm not going to do this right now for the sake of time, but as you click through this, you can say like, all right, I want to create a point layer. And with that point layer, I want to add this field and I want to add that field. And I want to collect like use it to say what the information is that you're collecting. And if you want things like a field that has a drop down or like a domain pick list, you can do that with this interface so that you create the data layer that you're using to collect information. So I've already done that. I created this feature layer. And then the next thing I did is I added it to a web map. And I want to go to this web map because I think this is kind of like how you can start to configure a quick capture project with these big buttons is create a data layer, pull it into a map. And in this case, I pulled it into a map. We actually did this. Eli and I were out in New Mexico in Albuquerque in October. And we did a little workshop for some folks down there. And we configured this project, and then people went out into the field. So all these points are actually points that people collected as we were just walking around the property real quick, where you can see you see the name of the thing that was captured and you see a picture of it. So people walked around, and I think we got like, I don't know, like 100 of these things pretty quickly. So you can see how you can quickly start actually building these things. But layer of information here, there's the fields that are in it are right here. So we created this data layer with these fields. We added it to the map. We changed the symbology to kind of like symbolize it to make sense according to what we're trying to collect. And I just want to show that if I was not in quick capture, I could add data just through a map or in other ways. But I just want to show if I were to put a point on the map here, this is the data that would be collected, would be the big thing in this particular project that we're going to use to create the buttons and quick capture is this capture type. And you can make these anything you want, but we just, for the sake of like a demo or like a practice, we just big trees, small trees, shrubs, rocks, those kinds of things. And so you could come in here and edit this by hand and like enter all this information. But what I want to show is how with quick capture, we can essentially create these big buttons based on how that data is structured. So I'm in this quick capture application, which by the way, I'm going to point out how you get to this. If you go to what we call the app launcher in ArcGIS Online, these 9 dots, you have this quick capture application that you can launch that gets you into it. And if you've created any projects previously, you'll see them, or you can create a new project. And when you create a new project, it's going to ask you like, hey, what map do you want to look at and what data within that map do you want to use? Oh, let me go back to this one. And while we're in here, we can create buttons. And when we create a button, what we do is essentially we give it text. We can give it, we can change the shape of the button. We can change like the fill, the border. We can upload images that actually like appear here to make this like, I don't know, like obvious what you're trying to collect. So that's like the configuration of the button itself. But then we also further configure like what, okay, when someone pushes this button, what is the data that we're collecting? And so in this case, we can choose between a single point or streaming, which would be like laying points down as maybe you're driving or walking or biking or whatever you're doing. And the other thing that's nice about this is it's really easy to configure a set of camera settings that allow you to like kind of, do you want to have the person record a video or a photo, or do you want to allow them to do both? Do you want a maximum or minimum number of photos? Those kinds of things. And here I've connected to that layer and I've said that when someone pushes this button, I automatically want you to make this field be that big trees, from that drop down. I automatically want that to be big trees. So that's kind of the configuration. I'm not going to get too much further into this. There's a lot more that you can do, but I just want to kind of quickly demo this on a mobile app. So let me see if I can do this real quick. Um, okay, I am dragging over my iPad. Okay, so this is my iPad. And you can see I have our mobile apps loaded onto my iPad. And when I get into Quick Capture, I've configured it in ArcGIS Online. And I'm going to go ahead and open this project. And this is what it would look like to a user out in the field is like, okay, it's waiting for my location because I'm sitting in a basement right now, but that would kind of just pop up the way it would for, any device. And I can click on something like, let's add a big tree. Oh, it's unable to add it right now because it's waiting for my location. Let me give it a second and see if that loads. There it goes. So I'm going to click big tree. It's going to ask me to take a picture, which is kind of funny because it's like in my basement. But that just added that. I can add some notes and that's kind of it. So that just added a point to the map where I am. So not doesn't fill every use case, but I think it does fill a lot of use cases for what we do. Um, it's kind of like a thing that if there's a use for it, it's great. And I also want to point out all that data is going back into the map, and then we can create using other applications we have. I'll talk about this a little bit later as well. But this is what I did for the workshop that Eli and I did back in October in New Mexico, is I just created in our system another application we have is something called ArcGIS dashboards, where it's really easy to just pull a data layer in and create elements that display information about it. So you can see down here, this is a serial chart where it's essentially just a bar chart of all the different types of captures we collected. This is a list of all the things that we've collected. And it's really easy to add additional elements. So like just as an example, I wanted to create a gauge, like maybe we wanted to have a little fun with this and we wanted to say, hey, I want us to collect like 1,000 points today. It's that easy to kind of come in here, like change what this looks like and add this to a dashboard. So this is just another point I want to make, is that as we're collecting data with these mobile apps, there are other tools in our system that are fairly easy to use that help you really visualize this in a hopefully meaningful way that allows you to get information from it. So Eli, I think that's all I'm going to talk about with Quick Capture. Maybe as we're switching over, a good place to see if anyone's got any questions specific to Quick Capture, but I'll pass it over to Eli.
Great, thank you, Joe. I'll just pull up the presentation here and we can get started with field maps. Let's see. All right. Can you see my screen all right here? Just gotta catch up to our slides. All right. So as Joe mentioned, Quick Capture is really that introductory or beginner level field application. And it's great for, as the name implies, capturing data in an efficient and quick manner, but sometimes we might need to go the extra mile and have a bit more information actually tied to the assets that we're collecting out in the field, whether we're building out some robust forms to fill out the fields tied to the thing we are collecting, or whether we need better spatial location. Whatever the reason might be, that quick capture does not have the full capabilities of what we need, we can turn to ArcGIS field maps. Again, as Joe did a great job of setting up, this is something that exists within the ArcGIS Online platform that we can access on a mobile device. So it really is streamlined for that data collection and editing, as it is a field application really focused on, you know, map-centric collection in this aspect, both whether we are connected to Wi-Fi as Joe was in his basement, or if we need to actually get to some more rural or remote areas, we have the ability and option to take these maps offline, uh, collect data when we're not connected to the internet, and then once we sync back up, have that information that we collected out in some of these rural or more remote areas be synced back into our overall system of record. Supports that precise location capture, and yeah, just really the next step on top of quick capture, and we'll see some of those capabilities and why that is here in just a moment. So as is evident with kind of all vulnerable workflows, the key ingredient is really that situational awareness. So maybe we don't even have people out there collecting data in the field, but they want to at least have a map to reference with the latest and greatest version of the data available to them. Field maps is a perfect example of that when it comes to some of this situational awareness. And whether we are collecting data or just having this as a nice set of pop-ups, linear referencing, managing assets, locations, it's really up to you and how you want that end user experience to look out in the field. So I'll be showing some data collection and editing techniques during our demos, but also just wanted to put it out there. A lot of times we see people, whether it's a tablet, mobile device, whatever you're using in the field, use this purely for reference sometimes. And then once we're getting more comfortable with the software, then we open it up for data editing, data collection, all of that great stuff. But before we can even really send out field crews and get them started on the collection process, we have to create a layer, create a map, and design a form for them to complete that data collection. And all of that can take place within Field Maps Designer, really for our creator, for our map author, to get our field crews situated and ready for collection in the best manner possible. So within Field Maps Designer, we're really focused on that first part, most importantly, creating a layer. Joe showed us how we can do that within ArcGIS Online just from the My Content page. You can also do that in Field Maps Designer. I'll walk through that shortly here in just a moment. So you can create a data layer itself that's going to exist within a map. That same map and data layer is what you're configuring for a field crew to actually use on their mobile device or tablet. You can configure those maps properties, pop-ups, settings, symbology, and then most importantly, we can start to actually manage feature templates and design forms. Now, these are all related to how we're actually collecting data in the field. So as Joe showed with that quick capture project, there was a lot of field attributes related to that. Sometimes even, location you were pointed when you were actually doing the collection process. Sometimes we don't want our field crew to have to fill out, all 30 fields while they're out in the field. That can be very time consuming, especially if we're doing a larger inventory or asset collection and we want to be mindful of their time. We can make it so in this template or in this form that they're only filling out a subset of fields, information that is crucial, that you need them to collect, that has to be collected out in the field. And we can actually start to just pick and choose and also stylize how we have our field crews filling out these forms and making sure that they're doing so in a time efficient manner. Finally, we can manage that offline experience within Field Maps Designer. This is where we can take those forms and maps offline for people to use in those more rural areas. We can share these maps outside of our field crew to anybody in the office who might need to see them as well. And we can also start to create what we call geofences. So let's say we only want people to actually collect information within a certain geographic boundary. We can actually set up that geofence, that boundary within field maps to make sure people aren't going wildly off base or off center of where we want them to be collecting data from. So after we've set up that form as either the manager, office worker, whoever is managing this field crew, we set up the form maybe for ourselves to go out into the field to collect, or for our field crew to go out and to collect. Then we can actually start to get to that data capture and editing platform and format. Whether it's on a mobile device or a tablet, these workflows are going to look the same. Really intuitive data collection tools. Joe talked a bit about streaming here. That's what that little video in the bottom here is focused on. So if we're collecting a boundary or a path, we can walk that perimeter, start streaming on our phone, and have it collect the individual points that make up the boundary or the straight line that we're walking down if maybe we're collecting a trail or a path. We can use those dynamic smart forms that we set up on the designer side to make sure that our field collection is efficient and is focused on the areas of interest that we want to collect. And then again, that high accuracy captures there as well, should we need that level of detail. Within the platform as well, when we're on the actual mobile application, is a lot of series of tools for a mix of navigation, collection, and direction as well. So we have that GPS as Joe was showing. We'll see it on my phone here. It's going to see and give you a level of accuracy in terms of feet most of the time to say, okay, you're going to be potentially this far off from that collection point. But if your accuracy falls beneath a certain threshold, you're going to be good to go, as this kind of blue indicates on this video to the left here. We can filter through different base maps. So all the base maps are kind of that background information here outside of our layers or forms that we've created. We might want some satellite imagery to serve as the base map instead of this kind of light gray canvas. We can alter between and choose the base map that's most relevant for us, as well as those layers, which is kind of that three layer icon on the top here, or search for any existing coordinates or addresses. We can turn layers on and off if we need information that's relevant to a certain type of collection, but not to another. And finally, we can actually click in on the assets that have already been collected or that we might need to be updating, see the current condition of them, the latest data that has been put into them, and then make our informed decision from there. And lastly, wanted to mention we can measure and also mark up notes on the map if we're to give that kind of look and feel of that, paper map workflow before, where we might not want to be editing the data exactly, but we might just want to be making notes about what we saw while we were out in the field. That brings us to my field maps demonstration. We're actually going to start in ArcGIS Online in the browser first here so that we can get an idea of what that workflow looks like. So I'll be here in Field Maps Designer. Just like Joe showed earlier, we go to that app launcher, 9 dots over by your username. Field Maps Designer will be what you use whenever you want to actually start some of these field collection projects. Now, when I go right into field maps off the bat, it's going to show me any and all field maps that I have created, any maps that I've created already in ArcGIS Online that I'd like to take ready and get ready for my field crews to actually start collecting off of. So, or we can actually start and create that new map within here. So I'm going to show very quickly just how we can create a new map and some new layers on top of that. This might be a workflow, especially if you're just starting out for the first time on this platform, that would be easiest to do. So I can create a new map and create what data points, what data layers I want to collect as part of that map. Just like Joe said, it could be a point, line, or polygon. So in this case, just like we did in New Mexico, I'm focused on amenities. I'm focused on paths, and I am focused on park boundaries. So I'm going to focus on one of each today, of a point, a line, and a polygon. And so what's really great about this is it's going to create a map and these initial data layers themselves. If I wanted to assign it, say, yes, I am going to use a high accuracy GPS receiver. Yes, I want to create tasks. Yes, 3D spaces will be modeled or analyzed. We can get into some more advanced settings here. A lot of the time I turn this one on, but for the sake of the demo today, I'll keep it as is. And then we'll say we're doing an amenities demo for you all today. So what this is doing when I click create map, it's going to create that map and the 3 data layers that I had on top of it, so that when I'm going into the next step, I can actually start to create some of those fields tied to each of those individual layers. Fields being the data points I want to collect, the information I want to collect about my amenities, about my parks, about my paths. So within here is where we can actually start to configure the form itself. Right now it's empty because these layers were just created. They don't have any attributes, any fields actually tied to them, but we can actually start to begin that process. So the first thing I'm going to focus on here is with, I'll just build out amenities for today, but focused on actual park boundaries. So, or the actual park that the amenity is located within. So I'm going to give my field a name. I am focused on creating a park name. And most importantly here is I want my users not to be typing in the name of the park themselves. They might misspell it, they might not capitalize, they might not put spaces in between. And we really want the data we get from our field crews to be accurate and as synchronized as possible. So I'm going to create a list of predetermined values for my field crew to actually be filling out instead of having to type it in while they're out in the field. I could go through and manually do this, or if I had an Excel spreadsheet of all my field names, I could do that as well, which is what I'll show you all today. So I'm going to select from my laptop here. I have a Parks CSV. Let's see if I can find it on the fly. If not, I might just have to type some of these in. Let's see. So I'm going to search for my parks. Maybe it's in my downloads. Let's check it out over here. Park names. That's right. There we go. So if I do park names here, and if I drag that file in over, perfect. So I know my file explorer was blocking that, but I dragged the CSV in here and it automatically populated 15 different values of the 15 different parks within my jurisdiction, which is what the values I want my field crew to actually be collecting. So now when I'm actually on my mobile device and I select park name, I'm going to get to choose one of those 15 options rather than typing it in myself. For the sake of time, I already built out a bit more of a robust form for, in this case, fire hydrant inspections, where I've got information like my test date, the address of the fire hydrant, the type of test I ran, the condition of the hydrant, its flow rate, so how fast water is flowing through that hydrant, and its corresponding band color, which better band color says the flow rate is better of a better hydrant. The hydrant is in better condition. So now I can actually start to go over and collect on my mobile device, which I'll pull up really quick here as we get to the end of our field maps demonstration. So Joe, I might have ask you if you can see that right now. Can you see my mobile device?
I do.
Okay.
Ooh, I did.
Oh, there we go. It's back.
Yeah.
Okay, so here I am within field maps on my phone right here. So when I load in, it's gonna, again, just like in Field Maps Designer, show me all existing maps within ArcGIS Online that I've created or have been shared with me. I'm focused on my Grand Junction fire hydrants field map. So we can see, just like on my browser, I can see the location of all my data points, and then actually go in and select an individual one here to edit. So this is hydrant 1240. And I want to actually say, okay, yes, I have run a test here. Since this is an unknown condition, it's in good condition, and it has a flow of 750, which, as we can see here, we can also do calculations. That band color before was red, as my value was 0 or unknown. We can also start to set up some calculations, all again in the sake of time, of making our field crews have to input in as little information as possible and build on top of the information they put in. So band color is calculated. We can see that test date is also corresponding to today as well. And once I submit that record here, and we will say goodbye to Field Maps Mobile. If I go in and actually refresh my overall map, so this same map that I filled out in the field is connected to ArcGIS Online. Kind of started in that Field Maps Designer portion in the browser, took it to the mobile, and now we're coming back full circle. Great. We can see that point that I just edited over in Hydrant Canyon View in Canyon View Park had that flow rate, condition, and band color all come through and that recent test date. So really all-in-one platform there when it comes to field maps. Now switching focus over to Survey 123, so I can give Joe enough time to wrap up here. We start to think less about map-centric collection and more about form-centric collection. Also wanted to mention, got ahead of myself there, task coordination is coming to field maps as well. So if we want to assign specific assets, specific collections to specific employees, we can start to do that within the field maps platform. Happy to answer questions about this once we wrap up. Survey 123. There we go, Eli. On topic now. So as I mentioned, form-centric collection is what we're talking about when we're talking about Survey 123. Can be done on a mobile device, can be done on a tablet, can be done in browser. That's a big difference from Field Maps Designer. We can actually send out forms for people to fill out just in Office on their computer, whereas Field Maps, once we're actually on that data collection part, really tends to be more within a mobile device or tablet. So within Survey 123, there is 123 steps. That is to create the survey, get answers, and share those results. Similar to field maps, there is a web designer for Survey 123. This is so you can actually start to build out those form-centric collections that you want to get out to your field crews. Very easy to learn and utilize, and we really choose from a variety of question types. So kind of like how Field Maps Designer had combo box, text, integer, radio buttons. Within Survey 123, we're really focused on different ways you can ask questions and gather responses. So whether that's an email, a signature, a multi-choice question, a rating, a drop-down of choices, it's up to you how you want to build out your survey to both get questions in a meaningful and timely manner. And then once we've actually created that survey, we can begin to get those answers, whether that's in the browser experience through our Survey 123 app, where we can, or excuse me, through our Survey 123 web app, where we are working within a browser. This is ideal for public data collection. You don't want everyone to have to download their own application. You can just send them a link to the survey. They'd get the exact form that you had created if we've shared it out to the general public. And you can also embed these in websites as well. And the focus of today was really those mobile workflows. Survey 123 also has a mobile app. This is really ideal for that field collection. Also, if we need that high accuracy with our GNSS receivers or need to work offline for any reason. And then finally, getting to the share results. Joe will really dive into this when he covers kind of what's that next step after we've collected data. But within the Survey 123 designer and website, there's also an Analyze tab where we can see all of our responses and start to get an idea of the breakdown of the data, the statistics behind it, and begin to visualize that as well, or inspect records one by one. And finally, when we want to share these results out, if we might not want a map or only want a map as part of it, we can actually create some customized PDF reports that take all the fields we filled out in the form and kind of put it into a format you might be more familiar with, whether there's feature or summary reports, and add all of the different fields people filled out in that survey, but kind of represent them in this more familiar PDF format. And then finally, A lot of new updates have been made to Survey 123 this year, specifically focused on our AI assistant, both for, natural language prompting to create your own survey, all the way down to some more cool analytical tools and calculations based off of survey respondents' information. So with that, I'll do a pretty quick demo here of Survey 123. Want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions here, and I'll hand it back to Joe in just a second. But really briefly wanted to show you the Survey 123 web designer aspect. So within Survey 123, just like in field maps, this time instead of a map, it's going to be a form. So we can see all previous forms that I have created or that have been shared with me. Or I can create a brand new survey in the top here. Once I choose that, I can start from scratch. I can start with the AI assistant. I can start based off of templates that other people have made or shared with me, or I can start with a feature layer. So let's say I want to create a survey form similar to our amenities form. I can take the data layer I created from field maps and build out a form that fills out all the same fields that came with that amenities feature layer that I created previously. I'm going to actually use the AI assistant here today just so we can get a brief look at what that looks like. I'm going to quickly ask it to make me a 5-question tree inventory survey. And I cannot type today, but this AI is smart enough to know what I mean there. So it's going to think, uh, gleefully respond. Certainly, here's a sample 5 question tree inventory survey. Where is it located? Species, approximate height, condition, photo. I'm going to say, yeah, that looks great. I could, prompt it, say, actually, I want 7 questions. Could you add these two? And it can do that as well. But I'm just, for sake of time, going to ask it to generate that survey draft here today. And then what's great is it's going to create different question types based off of the type of question I'm actually asking. So a map question for the location of the tree, an integer question for the height of the tree. I could build out a drop down if there's only a set list of species I want my participants to be filling out. Same idea goes for a condition of the tree. I could make a Likert scale that ranges from bad to excellent and have people fill out or adjust it on the scale based off the condition of the tree. And then again, just like in field maps, we can attach photos here as well. So some really cool things we can do in Survey 123. Happy to answer questions. But for now, Joe, I will hand it back over to you to close us out and get us to Q&A.
Thanks, Eli. I feel like you were talking fast there to get through things. So
Yeah, I realized I was a
thanks.
little slow on field maps. So
we're throwing a lot of information at them. So hopefully that's okay for you guys and gals. Let me see where we're at. I'll just kind of wrap up here with a few things that I want to make sure you are all familiar with or have some exposure to. Oh, we got you. So here, let me go back to my slide. Now, I already mentioned this, but I think one of the big things that we see being done with our technology is we use field maps or Survey 123 or Quick Capture to help us collect information in the field, and then we share it with other people within the organization with dashboards. We have a product called Instant Apps, which is a way, as the name alludes to, it's a very quick way to build an application that you could put out to the public. And you add like widgets or pieces of functionality like a base map switcher or an editing tool if you want people to be able to edit the data or whatever it is. But it's a very quick way to do that with probably minimal experience in building applications. You can build a nice app that you could embed in a website if you wanted to or whatever. And then we do have something called Experience Builder that is, I would say, as far as like need to understand like development and like you can really build some beautiful apps with Experience Builder, but you have to kind of get in the weeds in order to do so. So it may be a little bit more like specialized towards people who are familiar with application development that's kind of more built for. But I just want to show some examples of this because I think sometimes that's the what helps the most. And Eli and I, we hopefully know the technology well enough working for Esri, but you're the folks that know the things that you are going to be trying to do with our technology. And I think that if we bring that together, it could be really nice. So please tell us the kinds of things that you're trying to do with the technology, and maybe we can help you kind of vet apps or which ways you could go about building it. But I just want to show a couple of very quick examples. This is a dashboard that we built. This is a templatized workflow that I'll talk about in a second for wildlife conflict. So, there are situations where people have to go out and there's been a report of some sort of wildlife conflict where maybe a wolf has taken out someone's cattle or something of that nature. This is a dashboard that as people go out in the field, work with our technology to collect that information, we can display it in a nice dashboard like this. So just another example. I think the other thing that's important to just point out here is the filters on dashboards are really nice, where we can kind of filter by anything that's in the data, we can filter on. And a lot of times there are workflows where maybe there are phases that we're working through. So maybe someone does go out into the field, they collect some information. Maybe that's like initial assessment. Somebody back in the office uses one of our web apps to actually kind of like help it through. All right, we're going to email this person. We're going to get it into this other business system. We're going to kind of work that case or whatever it is. And then when everything is all completed, we mark it as complete, or maybe even go so far as automating that in some fashion. But dashboards are a great way to display that information. One other example I want to point out, we have a tree management solution that's awesome. So I don't know if anyone is managing trees. We also have a solution around invasive pest management. We're working on one for invasive species monitoring, because I know there's a lot of stuff like, buffalo grass and some other species that are rampant in Arizona that we're helping some of our customers with. But this is just one example of, this is ArcGIS Hub, which is kind of like our website builder technology that is built into our tree management solution, where as we're collecting trees, or public trees or trees in an area, we can put it into a hub site and we can like display this kind of information. There's actually, even within this hub site, there's an additional application, which is actually the tree viewer application, that allows people to maybe go in and explore any of the trees that you've got. And so if like you click on an individual tree, you can view details about that specific tree. If you're a citizen, Joe Citizen, you can actually like request service on that tree. Another kind of cool thing is this solution even goes so far as you run a little, like you collect all your trees and then you can run this little script that's pre-built, and it'll actually generate a 3D view of your trees. So kind of cool thing. 3D is becoming a really popular thing. I wanted to point those things out, and I know we have 5 minutes and we wanted to leave time for questions. I just want to really quickly point out the fact that we have solutions around the kinds of things that we know people are trying to do. So solutions, this is a team within Esri that takes our core tech, builds workflows around the kinds of things that we know people are trying to do with our technology. And we're always looking for new ideas from our customers of things that matter to you. In specific to conservation, I mean, there might be things in other areas like bucketed into state and local government that might be relevant to folks here. But just specific to conservation, we do have a park and ground management solution that has all sorts of layers that might be relevant to the kinds of assets that you would be interested in collecting out on the properties that you're responsible for. I mentioned invasive pest management. I did want to point out this conservation easement monitoring solution. This is something that we worked with a conservation group up in Utah to develop, and just real quickly show this. So I want to point out too, this is how you deploy these things. You literally just click on these things in the solutions gallery and click deploy now, and that will lay down all of the maps, the apps, the layers that make this thing come to life. And I just want to point out, this is the map. And so you figure if you're a person who's responsible, or an agency that's responsible for managing conservation easements, you can pull this map into ArcGIS Pro and use some of the editing tools there. But it's also very doable. I think our editing features in the online environment are getting really good. So, if I wanted to, I don't know, the boundary is going to be nothing, but if I just like add a boundary here for a conservation easement, you can see all of the rich information that we're trying to collect on this. And then there's a survey form for this that you can, I'm going to discard the edits here, but I'm going to show this really quickly because I know we're running out of time.
You're okay, Joe.
Okay.
If we run over and they have to drop out, if you guys have anything to do, you can go ahead and do that. This will be recorded.
Okay.
So if we run over, they can always turn back and then reach out to the recording. And I know, of course, you may
Awesome.
need to go as well. So, but do what you need to do.
No, I think we're okay, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I just want to point out here, I'm going to show this first. So I showed in the web map there in ArcGIS Online that we can edit in these conservation easements. If we have these already stored in a GIS layer, we can just append this into the solution. And let's say I am actually going out to this property and I want to do an easement inspection. You can see I can see any information about the easement that's been stored with the data, and I have this button to start an inspection. I think this is one of the reasons I wanted to show this is number one, I know that these conservation easements, there are inspections that have to be done periodically. This is a nice solution that's kind of pre-built to do it, but also this is a cool integration of I'm in the map in field maps on my mobile device, and I have need to collect information in something that is much more form-based, where it's like a lot of questions that I need to answer. And that might be a better Survey 123 might be a better tool to do that in. So I see the easement in field maps. I see any information I need to see about it, but I can click on Start Inspection, and that's actually popping me over to Survey 123 and opening a specific form. And it's actually adding certain information that is stored with that easement layer in the map. So it already knows like the property size, the acres. It's automatically loading the inspection date being today, but it's also loading other information that's stored with the layer, like when did we acquire it? What is the expiration date of it? When was the forest stewardship plan date? When was it created? Those kinds of things. And we can scroll through this, like list current uses, those kinds of things. So I just wanted to show that an example of these solutions that are really fairly well thought out and will allow you to get going. They're very flexible, so you can always add on to the survey forms and add on like layers and information to the maps. But I just wanted to point that out. And just like the other things we've showed, there's also a dashboard behind this that allows you to see all these inspections in a dashboard setting. So I'm going to end there because I think that I would like to keep a little bit of time if people can hang around for a few minutes to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Yeah, great. I think
Happy to
Don
open
has a
it up.
question.
Okay.
Well,
Don,
so
go
first of
ahead.
all, okay, I'm afraid my question is going to lead to something much more extensive, but I guess I just kind of want to put that out there. So Survey 123, I've personally experienced this on our ranch from a personal experience, and also the importance of communicating back. So I'm a public land grazer, like you and I had spoken before, and I've gotten Survey 123 reports. This probably isn't the right language, but written to me or about me as a report. Hey, I've been out on the place. I saw, 3 cattle in the wrong pasture.
Yep.
And so the idea behind the federal government wanting to do that is so that we can respond, say, hey, active management, got your report. Thank you. Cows were removed, in X amount of days. And it's kind of reporting the good work that's going down on the ranch, not just the bad. So what I'm understanding from your presentation, if there's formatting, I'm going to assume that whoever sent me that report kind of built their formatting in, and so I'll be obligated to however they do it. If I'm under the right impression too, I can submit something back to them. It has to be reviewed before it's kind of added to the database as verified. But you're really kind of touching on something as far as you're always trying to, if you are a public permittee, you're always trying to communicate something in a way that's professional enough that it's accepted and put in the record.
Yep.
And so this could really hit on a much broader issue, and that's a certain set of people learning how to communicate that in a more effective way, as opposed to just adding to the paper pile and getting lost. Like, to me, the responses are probably the most important part. So I might touch base on you with that one later, but my guess ultimately the question was, is if somebody sends you a survey report, survey 123 report, I'm assuming that you're kind of bound within all their parameters of what they built already in that report if you reply.
Um, what was the agency that's sending you that report? Can you remind me?
Prescott National Forest.
Prescott National Forest. Okay. Yeah. So one thing I will say is like when we build these solutions, for example, a lot of times what we try to do is ease the pain of the fact that people like there's one agency that's doing their thing and there's like another set of people that are like being asked to report something to that agency or vice versa.
Sure.
One of the ways that we handle that in our solutions is that we try to align the schema of any given solution to the agency that that data needs to be reported to.
Okay.
And so that like you're speaking the same language. It's like
Yes,
you're not giving
exactly.
them a report that has all this information that they don't care about that
Yes.
so that's one of the ways that we can do it, is that simply just like aligning those types of things. So it's like, all right, maybe you are getting a paper report that came out of survey 123, but they're entering that into their system and it's exactly what they want it to be. So I think
Right.
that that's one of the ways that we help. And the paper report, I would say, is like the baseline. We also, a lot of times, like a good example of this is like we help with a lot of point in time counts for homelessness in the US. And I know there's a new term for that, but the HUD is the agency that the federal government agency that receives that information.
Sure.
And they have a Excel format. It's like a Excel file that they send out is like, we want the data like this. And
Right.
what we do with our solution is we actually have a tool that you run that just exports the data from our system exactly into that format in an Excel file so that our customers who use our solution can just hand that over to HUD.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
we do things like that. And then the other thing I'll say is like a lot of times I would not be surprised if Prescott National Forest, you said that they're using Survey 123?
My range con-ins is,
Yeah,
and so like it's not just even responding to reports. To tell you the bigger get on my
yeah.
mind is, so the 30 plus years that we've been ranching, I have a little book written down what, like when we do like major improvements, we kind of try to tie like a financial amount to it and keep track of that. And I don't think my son is going to be willing to inherit this book, but I do think he has his phone. And so let's say he's working on a mile worth of fence and they've given him supplies. He needs to document where he put them in, kind of that time frame. This seems like a much more efficient way to communicate
Hmm.
with them, not just on, an inspection that maybe isn't good, but also projects going forward. So like I see this as a way to train up the next generation in order to communicate those things that we add, the value add we have on the ground.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And one thing I'll say too is like I think that like the kind of like ideal is that if they're already using ArcGIS for a great deal of this and you guys are interested in using it, it's like you can actually create groups within ArcGIS Online. So you have an ArcGIS Online organization that you're kind of, that's your world that you're working in, and they have theirs. You can create a group in
Hmm,
ArcGIS Online and invite users from both organizations. You have to have somebody in both organizations that's willing to have that kind of partnership, but you
sure.
could literally go so far as updating the same data layers or like using the same dashboard that is shared between organizations. And we do see that happening. We see a
Oh, wow.
lot between like counties and municipalities within the county. We see it with like state agencies, with local governments. That's where Eli and I work, but I'm sure it happens a lot in the conservation space as well.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's a great question.
So, can you elaborate just a little bit more on what you just talked about with the working groups? In conservation work, we have a really good open communication with other agencies, and there's some things that we'd like to work on as a big scale mapping project.
Hmm.
And could you explain that working group better, or how
Yeah.
I can incorporate your tools to achieve that? Because there's always the information protection with some of our leases and the private landowners and stuff like that. So is there some ways we can, like, if I have 2 or 3 different agencies and we're looking at a huge region-wide landscape scale project, and we have a lot of different people and pieces going in, so we can maybe propose for like a grant application or something like that to do like juniper mitigation. How would we utilize that group that you were just talking about?
Yeah, so this touches definitely on like kind of a bigger topic. I see Eli has to run. Thank you, Eli. So what I'll say about this, and it kind of opens like a bigger can of worms, but that's okay. It's important. So I believe that the conservation districts, you are all like nonprofit agencies. Is that correct?
The conservation districts are a
No.
political subdivision of the state of Arizona. The
Okay.
AACD is their 501c.
Okay. These are the things that I'm like less sure with you because I do work in state and local government, but essentially like our named user model is a couple of things. A, it is our licensing model. So it's like the way that you license our software. And that's like a question I don't like have a firm understanding of on your side as far as like what licenses you have, what organizations you're a part of. But what I can say about it is it's our licensing model, but it's also our authentication model. It's what keeps data secure within our system. So I'm logged in, I'm part of this organization that's like a demo environment for us to work in. And if I like create a bunch of apps and let's say I do want to work with another organization, I can go into this tab here called groups, and I can create a group, and you can see who can join this group. Only group members, all organization members. Who can be in this group? Is it just a group for my organization? Like I want to make a subgroup within my organization that we're going to share some layers that I want to let people edit, or do I want to let any organization's members into this group? And that's where we can, if we have some licensing in one organization, we got some licensing in another, everybody has their own ArcGIS Online organizations, but I want to create a group that allows us to authenticate in, and that's the important thing, is that we're not sharing it with everybody. We're just sharing it with the people that are in that group so that not everyone can see that data. It's secured. You can rest assured nobody else is like looking at your data or updating it or any of those things. We can create a group and then we can invite people into the group. And that's how we have organizations like kind of working together, so to speak, on projects that might range across different organizations. Does that answer your question? Does that help?
That helps quite a bit. Thank you very much.
And there's a few ways to go about this. I do think that's like, if you get to a point where you're like, hey, we're trying to figure this out, I absolutely think, contacting us. The other thing I'll say is we do have a nonprofit team within Esri that I think is assigned to work with a conservation district, and we could pull them in. Every agency has their set of account teams that work with them. We can all kind of pool our resources on the Esri side and figure out who's the best folks to work with you to kind of figure out that workflow.
Perfect. Yeah, well,
Yep.
and it is, I think, a matter of licensing and clarification on what all that, because in my mind, all those agencies have their own ArcGIS licensing and their authentication people, like they have their own guys. And then they kind of have the uppers that want to be a part of the project management side of it. But I think AACD's licensing, because of the partnership with NRCS, is limited, so it might have to be our conservation district gets its own licensing, because they're two different entities in order to create these groups in order to work forward on projects.
And that's where I'm a little opaque on understanding like the differences between the organizations that are involved, but we can help sort through that. We have account managers that can take a look at everything. And one thing I will say too is you can get one license for an organization, create an ArcGIS Online organization, and do a lot. So we have a lot of folks that have really big ArcGIS Online organizations with like hundreds, even thousands of users. But we also have, I think that's one really neat thing about our technology, is it really does scale to the size of an organization. Like I've seen one person do amazing things with GIS for an agency, and I've seen organizations that have, hundreds of people using GIS that maybe aren't doing as well. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
So I got one more question and then I'll stop taking all the time. So back to that, it's really interesting when we talk about all these apps. Some of us are like the lone man who have to build the forms, collect the data, put the data in. These apps, I feel like you have to do, from just what I looked at or listened to just now, you have to do a little bit of prepping to get them all put together, all the forms, and then go out with the apps on your phone or your device or whatever you have to input the data, because I don't really have there's not like a field crew. I am the field crew.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And that's why I wanted to show the solutions, is sometimes they'll give you a really good idea of what can be done, even if it's not like exactly the thing you're trying to do. They're a good way to kind of understand like those patterns of like, okay, I have a mobile app here that I've configured to collect some data, and that goes into the system, and then I've got this dashboard that shows it, and then I've got this hub site where I can share it with like the public or other organizations. And but yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, that like you, as like, let's say you are the lone person, the lone wolf, so to speak, you're probably going to do some configuration of, I'm going to create some data layers to store my information. I'm going to put that into a web map, and I'm going to do that in ArcGIS Online. I might do some further configuration in that field maps designer that Eli showed, or pull it into a survey form. And then I'm going to be the person also that goes out into the field, but I'm going to, having done that work back in the office, it's going to make it easier for me to just open field maps, a mobile app on my phone, and just edit and update that information while I'm out there. So yes, you're kind of like, we a lot of times think of that as like different roles, like it's a GIS person configuring this stuff and a field person, but so often that's actually just the same person.
Thank you.
Yep. Ronnie, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'll touch base with you and kind of see what we're maybe kind of looking at. Our tentative next meeting is going to be January 9th. But I'll kind of be in touch with you and see maybe if we can't set something up to kind of follow up on this. And then also to kind of give everyone a contact for you and Eli or whoever that they may need. And I'm also going to talk with Dawn and our head, which is Deb, and Draw and Sarah as well, and kind of have a powwow with them, and then reach out to you and kind of see how we can kind of really get all this information out to them. Because like I said, I think that there's a lot that is available that can help out with them, so that you guys have to offer. So
Great.
if you're interested. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks everyone for your time today. Appreciate it. Sorry to go
All right.
over by 15 minutes.
Quite all
Thank you
right.
so
I'm sure they'll appreciate it. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Look out for the feedback forms if you can, to kind of fill that out. And then again, I will also to collect kind of their questions and stuff too, and submit them to you, Joe, as well. That way we can kind of see what they're doing, and if you can answer those for us, that would be great.
Okay.
And then, like I said, you guys look out for the registration. That'll be coming out to you tentatively for our next meeting on January 9th. All right, guys,
All
thank
right.
you. All right.
Thank you,
Thanks all.
guys.